The first cry that Virginia Patterson Hensley let out in Winchester, Virginia, on the 8th of September 1932 was just a prelude to the voice that would change country music forever. Born during the depths of the Great Depression to a teenage mother and a blacksmith father who would abandon the family when Virginia was just 15, she learned early that survival required grit, determination, and an iron will that would become her trademark. Her mother, Hilda, worked as a seamstress, and young Virginia, who everyone called Ginny, helped support the family however she could. But when she sang, something magical happened. At age 4, she won a tap dancing contest. By 8, she was performing in her church choir, her voice already carrying a maturity and emotional depth that seemed impossible for someone so young. The Hensley family moved frequently, following work opportunities, but they eventually settled back in Winchester. At 13, Jeannie contracted rheumatic fever and a severe throat infection that hospitalized her. The illness changed her voice, giving it a deeper, richer quality that would become her signature sound. "I developed this booming voice," she would later say. "I think it came from all that hollering I did when I was sick." By 14, she had dropped out of high school to help support her family, working at the local drugstore during the day and singing wherever she could at night. She sang at local churches, talent contests, and amateur shows. Her mother made her stage outfits from scratch flashy, cowgirl-style dresses adorned with fringe and rhinestones that caught the lights and the audience's attention. In 1948, at just 16, she met a local band leader named Bill Peer, who recognized her raw talent. He invited her to perform with his Melody Boys and Melody Playboys groups. It was Bill who suggested she adopt a more stage-worthy name. She chose Patsy after her middle name Patterson, keeping Hensley as her surname. For the first time, Patsy Cline had a real stage name and a real opportunity. She performed everywhere: country fairs, local radio stations, honky-tonks, and dance halls across Virginia, Maryland, and West Virginia. The pay was terrible, sometimes just a few dollars or a free meal, but she was building something, a reputation. People noticed the girl with the powerful voice who could make a grown man cry with a ballad and get everyone on their feet with an up-tempo number. In 1953, Patsy married Gerald Cline, a local man, in a union that would be turbulent and short-lived. But she kept his surname for her stage name. It had a better ring than Hensley. That same year, she met Bill McCall, a shrewd and exploitative music publisher who would sign her to a contract that would haunt her for years, giving him control over her recordings and royalties in perpetuity. Act to Walking After Midnight 1955 to 1960. Patsy's big break came in 1957, though it almost didn't happen. She had been performing regularly on a break, local television show, Town and Country Time, in Washington, D.C., when she got the opportunity to appear on Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts, a popular national television show that could make careers overnight. She was pregnant with her first child and deeply uncertain about the song they wanted her to sing, Walkin' After Midnight. She thought it was too pop, too different from the straight country she had been singing. But on the 21st of January, 1957, 8 months pregnant, wearing a homemade dress, Patsy walked onto that stage and delivered a performance that changed everything. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The studio audience voted her the winner, and within weeks, Walkin' After Midnight had climbed to #2 on the country charts and #2 on the pop charts. At 24, after years of struggling, Patsy Cline was finally a star. But success brought its own complications. Her marriage to Gerald Cline fell apart, ending in divorce in 1957. She was constantly on the road, balancing motherhood with an increasingly demanding career. And despite her hit record, money remained tight thanks to the predatory contract with Bill McCall, who controlled her recordings and paid her minimal royalties. In 1957, she married Charlie Dick, a linotype operator she had met years earlier. Their relationship was passionate and volatile. Friends described it as a love-hate dynamic with legendary arguments followed by equally legendary reconciliations. Charlie would become both her greatest supporter and a source of considerable stress throughout her career. The late 1950 seconds proved frustrating professionally. Patsy struggled to find a follow-up hit to Walking After Midnight. She recorded multiple singles that failed to chart significantly. The music industry wasn't sure what to do with her. She was too pop for country purists and too country for pop audiences. She appeared on the Grand Ole Opry sporadically, but hadn't yet become a regular member. In 1960, pregnant with her second child, Patsy's career seemed to be stalling. She had achieved one hit, but couldn't seem to recapture that magic. She continued performing locally and regionally, but the big breakthrough everyone expected hadn't materialized. Some industry insiders whispered that she might be a one-hit wonder. Then everything changed again. Act 3. Crazy 1961 to 1962. In late 1960, Patsy finally escaped Bill McCall's contract and signed with Decca Records, where she began working with legendary producer Owen Bradley. Bradley saw what others had missed. Patsy's voice was extraordinary enough to bridge country and pop. He began recording her with the Nashville A-Team musicians, adding lush string arrangements and creating the Nashville sound that would define country music for the next decade. The first fruit of this collaboration was I Fall to Pieces, released in early 1961. The song showcased everything special about Patsy's voice, the emotional vulnerability, the perfect control, the way she could break your heart with a single sustained note. It topped the country charts and crossed over to the pop top 20. Patsy Cline wasn't a one-hit wonder after all. But tragedy nearly derailed everything. On the 14th of June 1961, while riding in a car with her brother Sam and a friend, they were involved in a devastating head-on collision. Patsy was thrown through the windshield. She suffered a broken wrist, dislocated hip, and severe facial lacerations that required surgery and left a prominent scar on her forehead. Doctors thought she might never sing again. She spent a month in the hospital and months more recovering at home. I Fall to Pieces continued climbing the charts while she lay in bed, unable to perform, unable to capitalize on her success. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She had a song called I Fall to Pieces topping the charts while she was literally in pieces. But Patsy Cline was nothing if not determined. Against medical advice, she returned to performing in late 1961, wearing wigs to cover the scars on her forehead until they healed. And Owen Bradley had another song waiting for her, a waltz written by a young, unknown songwriter named Willie Nelson called Crazy. Patsy initially didn't like Crazy either. She had a habit of disliking her biggest hits. She thought the melody was too difficult, the phrasing too complex. But when she recorded it in August 1961, still wearing a cast from her injuries, she created what many consider the perfect country record. Her voice, slightly cracked and vulnerable, wrapped around the melody like silk around a wound. Crazy became her biggest hit, topping the country charts for 9 weeks and reaching #2 on the pop charts. It sold over 1 million copies and established Patsy as a bona fide crossover star. Radio stations that had never played country music made exceptions for Patsy Cline. The hits kept coming. She's Got You in 1962 gave her another hash-owned country hit and top 20 pop. Success. She became a member of the Grand Ole Opry. She performed at Carnegie Hall. She appeared on television shows and in benefit concerts. She bought a house in Nashville and was finally making real money. But perhaps more importantly, she became a mentor and friend to younger female artists struggling to find their place in the male-dominated country music industry. She befriended Loretta Lynn, who was just starting out, and became her champion, helping her get gigs and introducing her to industry contacts. She was like a mother to me, Lynn would later say. Dottie West, Jan Howard, and others also found in Patsy a fierce advocate who understood the unique challenges women faced in the industry. She demanded equal pay, refused to be sidelined, and insisted on being treated as professionally as her male counterparts. In an era when female country singers were often relegated to novelty acts or backup roles, Patsy Cline was charting her own course. Act 4, the last song, 1000, 1963. Early 1963. Patsy Cline stood at the peak of her career. At just 30, she had achieved what many artists spend lifetimes pursuing: critical acclaim, commercial success, and genuine respect from her peers. She was recording prolifically with Owen Bradley, experimenting with her sound, and planning her first international tour. On the 3rd of March 1963, Patsy performed at a benefit concert in Kansas City, Kansas, to support the family of Cactus Jack Call, a disc jockey who had been killed in a car accident. Despite battling a cold and feeling under the weather, she insisted on performing. The show must go on, that was Patsy's philosophy. Among the other performers that day were fellow Opry stars Hawkshaw Hawkins, Cowboy Copas, and Randy Hughes, who was Patsy's manager and also a pilot. They had all flown to Kansas City together in Randy's single-engine Piper Comanche, and they planned to fly back together after the show.
But weather reports on March 5, their departure day, were troubling.
A cold front was moving through the region, bringing rain, low visibility, and dangerous flying conditions. Several people, including Dottie West, urged them to wait a day or drive back instead. But Randy Hughes was confident in his abilities, and Patsy was eager to get home to her husband and children. She had already been away longer than planned. "Don't worry," Patsy reportedly told Dottie West. "When it's my time, it's my time." According to multiple accounts, Patsy had been having premonitions of her own death. She had recently updated her will. She told friends she had dreamed about dying in a plane crash. Some dismissed it as superstition. Others found it eerily prescient. Just months earlier, she had been in a terrible car accident that nearly killed her. Now she was casually discussing her own mortality.
At approximately 5 p.m. on the 5th of March 1963, Randy Hughes's Piper Comanche took off from Fairfax Municipal Airport in Kansas City, heading for Nashville. The weather was
Already deteriorating, but Hughes decided to proceed. He stopped briefly in Dyersburg, Tennessee, to refuel and check weather conditions. The reports weren't good, but again, he decided to continue. Somewhere over Camden, Tennessee, about 90 miles west of Nashville, the plane encountered severe weather. In the darkness and poor visibility, Hughes became disoriented. He descended too rapidly, unable to see the ground approaching in the heavy rain. At approximately 6:20 p.m., the Piper Comanche crashed into a forest near Camden. The impact was catastrophic. All 4 people aboard Patsy Cline, Randy Hughes, Hawkshaw Hawkins, and Cowboy Copas were killed instantly. Epilogue: a voice that never faded. News of the crash devastated the country music community. The Grand Ole Opry held a memorial service where thousands of fans gathered to mourn. They played Patsy's records and shared stories of her generosity, her talent, and her fierce determination. Patsy Cline was buried at Shenandoah Memorial Park in Winchester, Virginia, not far from where she had grown up singing in church and dreaming of stardom. Her grave features a bell tower that plays hymns throughout the day. Fans still visit regularly, leaving flowers, notes, and mementos. She left behind her husband Charlie and their 2 young children, Julia and Randy. She left behind a mother who had made her costumes and believed in her when few others did. She left behind friends like Loretta Lynn, who would say, "She taught me a lot about how to be a woman in this business." But, most significantly, she left behind a musical legacy that would only grow more influential with time. In her brief 30 years, with a recording career that spanned less than a decade, Patsy Cline recorded only about 100 songs. But those songs changed country music forever. She proved that country music could cross over to pop audiences without losing its soul. She demonstrated that a woman could be the main attraction, not just the supporting act. She showed that emotional vulnerability could be strength, that you could sing about heartbreak and resilience in the same breath. Her influence extended far beyond country music. Artists from Linda Ronstadt to K. Long to Leanne Rimes to Norah Jones have cited her as an inspiration. Her recordings continue to sell, her songs continue to be covered, and her story continues to resonate. In 1973, she became the first female solo artist inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. In 1995, she received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. In 1999, a star-studded tribute album featured everyone from Trisha Yearwood to Martina McBride covering her songs. Her life inspired a 1,985 film, Sweet Dreams, starring Jessica Lange. The tragedy of Patsy Cline's death is amplified by the timing. She was just hitting her stride, just reaching the point where she had the resources, the reputation, and the freedom to truly explore what she could do as an artist. The albums she might have recorded, the performances she might have given, the artists she might have mentored, all lost in that Tennessee forest. But perhaps the real measure of Patsy Cline's legacy isn't what she might have done, it's what she actually accomplished in her brief time. She took a little girl from Winchester, Virginia, who had nothing but a powerful voice and an unshakable belief in herself, and turned her into an icon who would influence generations of artists across multiple genres. When you hear that voice, rich, powerful, effortlessly emotional on recordings that are now more than 60 years old, it doesn't sound dated. It sounds timeless. It sounds like a woman who understood heartbreak and joy, struggle and triumph, and could communicate all of it in a single sustained note. Patsy Cline's plane crashed on the 5th of March 1963, but her voice never fell to earth. It remained suspended somewhere between country and pop, between heartbreak and hope, between the young girl singing in Winchester and the star who changed music forever. Somewhere, someone is discovering crazy for the first time and feeling their heart break in the most beautiful way. Somewhere, a young female artist is listening to I Fall to Pieces and thinking, yes, I can do this too. Somewhere, that voice, that incredible, impossible, unforgettable voice is still singing,